be the moderator for today's session. This morning, we are going to have a sharing by Technologies Wallace Wong. He'll delivering the topic of combating uncertainty with data-driven insights. Beforehand, I would like to give a short brief about our speaker. Technologies Wallace is currently the head of data science, quality and delivery from CADS, the Center of Applied Data Science. Industry-wise, he's an expert with digital transformation and telecommunication with collective of 30 plus years of working experience. In CADS, he's also the lead trainer for enterprise data practitioner learning path. He went to King's College London in UOL and achieved first-class honours degree in engineering majoring electrical and electronics. Just a special reminder, we're going to have Q&A sharing towards the end of the session. Therefore, please be ready with your questions afterwards. I would like also for everyone to kindly mute yourself to reduce noise and other interruptions. Okay, we shall begin our talk today. Technologies Wallace, you may start your sharing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Luna. Yep. Good morning, everyone. So welcome to this webinar session. It's about combating uncertainties with data analytics. So I'm going to share my screen, my slides. All right, let's take a minute. All right, yes. Good morning, everyone. So welcome to this webinar. With this, I'm going to start off our webinar with a question here. Right? So who is the mother of all disruption? Hold your answers, think about it. Then I hope that by the end of this webinar, you shall be able to have an idea who is the mother of all disruption. Okay, so in my webinar today, so we're going to start off with by looking at some of the status and trends of big data and their exploitation. After that, we're going to move on into looking at what is predictability. Yeah, why is predictability important? And then we're going to delve further in how to handle disruption with predictability. And lastly, we'll look into the real-world cases of benefit when predictability is applied to our problems and challenges. Okay, so now let's start off with big data trends and application. So as you all know, okay, the data is a new oil of 21st century. So there are multiple ways where you can observe this. It's through a few of the V's, yeah. So from here we can see that the first V is volume, yeah. As we all know, okay, data volume is increasing tremendously in the exponential phase. So every day, 2.5 quintillion of data is being created, and that encompasses to 90% of the data that has been contributed over the past 2 years. So if you put into perspective, right, 2.5 quintillion bytes of this data is actually equivalent to 2.5 millions of hard drives being created every day. So with that, you can see we have loads and loads of data being created in the exponential phase as we go into the futures of the next decade. But this data will only be useful if you really can turn them into insights. So which is what we're going to look at, how to use insights to combat uncertainties. So the first V is about the volume of the data is exponential, is increasing. So no doubt about that. So the second one is, where does this data come from? So you can see over here, majority of data, they are coming from both social media, documents, business application, machine logs, media, and as well as sensor data. So majority of the data is being contributed by all these kind of applications, IoTs, devices. So then subsequent type of data you can see is from internal, which is by the data subject itself, like you and me. Whenever we use data or we collect something or we make purchases, so those are the data that our data subject would use. So those are called internal data. External data are data that which we would share with some external party, for example, in the public web or in My Sejahtera, for example, if you are using a health check, right, a health scanning, so all those data would also be stored. So these are the potential source of data, internal, okay, which is close to the data subject, external, okay, which you can use for all sorts of businesses, or both, where particularly in terms of machine logs data, sensory data. Yeah, so okay, these are the sources of data that drive all the volume. Now with data, yeah, so there is new opportunity that can be explored with, but there are multiple types of challenges you can see here. So especially in terms of too much data, that will cause you to don't know where to start, right? So too much of the data could be a problem where you don't know what kind of data is making sense and what kind of data is useful, right? So these are potential challenges with the data. Then secondly, first of all, collecting of data in the very first place is already posed as a challenge, because data comes in all sorts of formats, right? Not only text, not only in terms of Excel sheets or in terms of tabulated data. It comes in all forms like pictures, audio, video. All those are as a form of data as well. So with all those data in mind, how are you going to collect? How are you going to store them? And then eventually, how are you going to make use of them? Right. So all this is eventually very, very important, and yet it poses a challenge for you to continue using data. Then lastly, okay, there is some form of a skill gap here where customer lost the direction in terms of how should they start their digitalization journey. Yeah, so that is also a challenge where you will not know what kind of approach should they use, where should they start, okay, what kind of resources they should use, what kind of application they should leverage on in order to utilize all those data. So there are opportunities, abundance of them, but challenges is the one that we're all facing. In this webinar itself, you can see there are step-by-steps that I'm going to showcase. See how are you going to leverage on the application of data. Yeah. So now a use case. So for those who are able to harness the power of data, they are able to eventually make use of it. So for example, Macy, yeah, a clothing company, yeah, a apparel company, where they are able to turn 73 million of sales in terms of using data. Walmart, okay, they can turn billions of big revenue operation. Then data also being used by police department, right, in Los Angeles in order to cut crime. So with the use of data, there is a 33% reduction in terms of crime. Yeah, so data is actually very effective. Right, it's another new source of insights for us to better manage and execute our solution. Then lastly, right, in merchant banking, American Express or credit card related merchant, so they see that you use data to actually do some form of prediction, saying that okay, how many of all those customers they have potential to cancel their card, so that they can actually formulate a retention approach for them to retain the customer for a longer term. So to provide a more fulfilling cycle in terms of their usage. So yeah, there are challenges in terms of data, but for those who are able to harness the data, right, so they actually able to reap a lot of reward. Okay, so these are the status of where the big data is and the challenges and potential application. So it's limitless. Okay, so with that, is a glimpse of how big data is in terms of our current status. So now we can look at predictability. So when we talk about predictability, so why do we need predictability, and what is the form of predictability? What is the definition of predictability? So let's start off with something by looking at a few quotes from a few famous people. Right, the first thing first here, right? A quote from one of the billionaire industrial, okay, in India. He's saying that business is all about risk taking and managing uncertainty and turbulence. Yeah. So yeah. Then the next question will be, how do you manage uncertainty? How do you manage uncertainty? So in order for you to manage uncertainty, what is the best way? Well, you need to have information, right? So relevant information to your business use case allows you to effectively manage uncertainty during turbulent times. So with that, you can simply cut down the risk, right? So where does information come from? Where does all the relevant information come from? It comes from the data, right? So therefore, data is a source that it allows you to extract relevant information, and then with this information, eventually you can create relevant insights. So the insights is the one where it's most valuable for you to make a decision, to have a glimpse into the future of what is going to happen. So with the creation of insights, in fact, you are actually creating some form of a predictive analytics regarding your business. Yeah. So this is the simplest form of predictive analysis, where by using data, it allows you to create insights. With these insights, you can make a decision. So that decision definitely is not now, right? It's something to affect the future of your business. So this is the simplest form of predictive analytics you can see by using information extracted from data. Yeah. So predictability, once you are able to predict something, yeah. So predictability is achieved when forecast of a system states can be made either to qualitatively or quantitatively. Yeah. So the last term here, quantitatively or qualitatively, actually refers to analytics. Yeah, because we know analytics here, there are multiple ways of conducting uh, analytical techniques. So one of the ways we will see later is the analytics approach we use to tackle a certain problem. Right. So at the end of the day, yeah, we have to leverage on data to apply some form of analytics, okay, in order to predict our future. So because without analytics, okay, in this digital ecosystem, all companies will be just like blind and the deaf ear in a highway. Yeah. So bear in mind, okay, if you want to have some form of predictability in your organization, you have to start leveraging on data itself, insights, and as well as apply the necessary techniques. Okay, so this is predictability. Yeah. Now we're going to move on to the next one. How to handle disruption with predictability. So we're going to look at a real world situation that we have now. Okay. Then we see how predictability is being applied, how we come about utilizing predictability to help actually manage some of this disruption. So let's have a look over here. Now, since we know, all right, we need predictability in order to manage the risk. So let's look at the global risk report from World Economic Forum. In year 2020, so World Economic Forum has identified that okay, there is a much more imminent and much more potential risk compared to other types of risks that you can see here. So on the top, you can see there are environmental, geopolitical, social, economic, and technology. So as you can see, there are four quadrants over here, where the y-axis is about the impact from this risk, and the x-axis is the likelihood, the probability of this risk having to happen in the very near future. So problem now is which this quadrant, the top right quadrant, therefore, would be the most types of potential risks that we should focus as a business, right? Because we know that it's going to happen very likely, the high probability will happen, and the impact from this risk is very significant. So let me zoom in into the top right quadrant over here in terms of what are the potential risks, okay, that has been estimated by World Economic Forum. So I'm going to focus on this quadrant. So let me zoom in. So from here you can see, right, majority of all these risks, they are related to environmental, right? So you can see climate change failure, extreme weather, biodiversity loss, natural disaster, human-made environmental disaster. So all these highly potential risks that was going to happen, you can see their majority are being closely related to the natural disaster from the environmental related issue. So this is the one where now we're going to draw further in terms of how to manage, their way to manage all these risks. Okay, so what are the kind of approach we can use? How can we use data? Do data play a role in terms of this? So let's have a look. All right. So now environmental risk. When we talk about environmental risk, what is the main driver there? causes all these, that trigger all these environmental risks. So let's have a look at these short clips over here.
UN says that right now, our world is about 1 degree hotter than pre-industrial times. That's around the year 1800, which is okay. In fact, the UN says if we warm by 1.5 degrees before the end of the century, we should be fine. The UN even says 2 degrees would probably be all right. But again, the problem is speed, because right now we're on track to hit 1.5 degrees in only 10 years. And if we don't slow that warming down, it could mean catastrophe within my lifetime, and maybe yours too. And we're already getting a taste.
Climate change is here. Climate change is happening. We are well into the 6th mass extinction event.
Europe is currently colder than the Arctic.
More than 1,000 people being rescued just in the early morning hours of Sunday.
Millions of people are likely to suffer worsening food and water shortages. Drought, which is now in its 10th year, is a phenomena that's here to stay.
We've never seen a year's worth of rain in less than 7 days.
Sea levels are rising about 3 millimeters a year because seawater expands as temperatures get warmer. Melting ice sheets and glaciers also add trillions of tons of fresh water into our oceans. People around the world are already losing their homes. And if things carry on, millions more of us will have to pack up too. Entire coastal cities could be underwater within 80 years, like Miami in the US or Osaka in Japan. Entire island nations in the Pacific could completely disappear.
So, right, so from this video clip, you can see, right, which is the main factor that trigger environmental risk. So I would say is unpredictable weather patterns that's triggered by extreme climate change, right? So then I hope slowly you shall be able to estimate or guess what is the next thing that we're going to make it predictable.
UN says,
right, so now so this is real, everything is real, so unpredictable weather is causing devastation all around the world, right? So let's have another look.
The year is just 2 months old. Already, catastrophe in Argentina as a scorching heat wave sparks raging wildfires. Deadly landslides devastate Brazil's historic mountain town of Petropolis. Events like this, together with ongoing droughts, floods, and superstorms, are the new climate normal. And it's only going to get worse unless something is done fast. So says a harrowing climate report that lays out how civilization has accelerated the decline of nature at the expense of humanity and ecosystems. And that adaptation is urgently required, especially in the global south.
This is about building our resilience, being prepared for worse things to come. How can we stop and limit the impacts of climate change that are happening now and will happen further in the future? And so investment in adaptation is sorely needed.
In Glasgow last year, world leaders vowed to scale back on the use of fossil fuels, but in fact, the complete opposite has happened. Emissions are soaring as global demand for energy has increased, with economies bouncing back from the effects of the pandemic. Oil and gas prices have spiraled. Despite promises, banks are investing heavily, particularly in coal.
If we move out of polluting fossil fuels such as coal, oil and gas and into clean renewable energy sources such as wind and solar, we will cut emissions and limit global temperature rises. And as I say, that gives chance for adaptation measures to work.
With the world rightly focused on the crisis in Ukraine, this latest climate report emphasizes global warming is a fundamental long-term threat that cannot be ignored. But the science shows it can be stopped in its tracks if humanity cuts emissions to zero. Time, though, is running out. Nick Clark, Al Jazeera.
All right, so from here we can see, environmental risk is real, it's devastating all forms of life. So as you can see from the IPCC report, 3.3 billion lives has been affected where with this climate change and extreme weather, okay, the weather is going to get worse 4 times more, right? And then there will be 5 times more flood, storms, and drought is going to happen. Okay, if the global temperature going to rise, and now 3.3 million, which is equivalent to 45% of the global population, they are all vulnerable to this climate change, and they are 15 more times likely to die from extreme weather. So with that, right, weather, okay, will eventually become an important factor we need to consider in our lives, in everything that we do. Okay, so with this, right, what now? Can we predict the weather? Right? Can we code? Is it possible? Well, let's see. So over here, as a form to curb all this climate change, so we have decarbonization, net zero carbon plans that has been put in place under the Paris Agreement since November 2016, but we fail miserably. Yeah, we are not able to control the rise of the global temperature. So as a result of that, you can see there are a lot of catastrophic incidents happening. In Japan, there's a flood that's causing 9 billion losses. Then there is a campfire that happens in the United States back in November 28, which caused 16 billion of losses. Then most recently, during the COVID time, there is the Australia bushfire that contributed to a damage that is still ongoing. Okay? Back in 2020, that is amounted to 68 billion. So all these losses actually, right, is contributed by an unpredictable weather pattern. So most recently, okay, close to our home, right, there is a super typhoon, right? It's a category 5 typhoon with a wind of 260 kilometers per hour, okay, that hits Philippines, okay, just 7 months ago. And the estimated damage is approximately 1.2 billion. So with all this, you can see environmental risk is wreaking havoc because of unpredictable weather pattern. So is it all doom and gloom? Okay, what are the things that we can do now in order for us to actually better prepare for this unpredictable weather pattern? Well, the answer is predictive analytics. So this is where Google's come to apply its expertise in terms of AI, where they're now able to do weather not forecasting, but weather nowcasting, right? So it's done by the DeepMind, which is the AI arm of Google. So when they talk about nowcasting, is that they are able to very accurately predict, okay, the weather, not just 3 to 4 days or weeks ahead. That is already done, and the accuracy is really high for the current model that is being using for weather prediction. But what they are doing now is nowcasting is a model they have developed that provides the improve that model of existing weather forecasting model to be more accurate in terms of a few hours away from now. From the existing weather forecasting, we know, okay, you can see next week or next Monday, okay, there is rain at certain hour. But as you move closer and closer to Monday itself, okay, will you be able to accurately predict, oh yeah, that rain is going to come in maybe 30 minutes time or 20 minutes time or an hour's time? Will you be able to do that? No, with the current weather forecasting technology, cannot be done until now, where DeepMind has been able to fine-tune further, okay, their predictive analytics approach by using AI capability to accurately predict weather in a very close range, which is 1 to 2 hours as of your current condition. So with that, this is all real, right? And they have actually implemented and validated the model. So you can see here, the model is known as deep generative model of rain. So with that, okay, they are able to measure the precipitation of the rain up to 2 hours, okay, based on the timing and the location. With that, this is achieved by using current data and past data on the weather radar that they have scanned. Yeah. So with these inputs, they are able to very accurately identify, okay, things is going to be heavy rain and what is the precipitation at what location. So with that model they have developed, okay, they are able to very effectively pinpoint, okay, the prediction of medium to heavy rain events, which is most severe in terms of impacting people and the economy. So, and their model actually is being certified by the UK Meteorology Department as the first choice where they will use in order to do nowcasting prediction, okay, to provide insights to what is going to happen in terms of the weather. Right. So how is it done then? You'll be wondering, how is this nowcasting, is it possible? How is it done? So let me share with you. All right. So what you can see here is the methodology of a predictive analytics. So these are the approach that is can be commonly used whenever we want to create predictive analytics. So let's have a look. Okay. There are 5 steps to it of creating a predictive analytics. Step number 1, okay, is to define the requirement. Right. So what do you do while you're defining the requirement is that you firstly need to understand, okay, what are the problems that you want to solve? What are the contexts that you are looking for, okay, in order to resolve? Okay, then you have to define the relevant measurement matrices as well as the evaluation methodology. So that is the first step for your predictive analytics. So once you have completed formulating the requirement, identifying your challenges and problem statement you got to solve, the relevant KPI, okay, as well as evaluation methodology. The next thing is you have to start looking at the data. So as we all know, right, data provide information and insights which eventually allow us to make decisions about our immediate future. So in this case, it's a predictive analytics. So exploring data involves identifying the relevant inputs and the data sets. And it's very, very important that you have to access the nature of the data sets. When you talk about nature of data sets, it's about the data that you have collected. So are they relevant? Are they reliable in terms of their collection? Is there any form of bias? And in terms of quality, are those data that you collected, do they have any missing value? So all those has to be taken into consideration during the exploration of data stage, which is stage number 2. So once you have done that, okay, the third one is developing a model. So this is the heart of predictive analytics. It's all about finding the right model, okay, that fits into your business context, that is allows you to address the challenges and problem statement using the data that you have. So the effectiveness of your predictive analytics outcome is very much therefore depending on developing the right model and then selecting the right criteria to implement this model. So what I'm going to highlight here is that you can see in terms of the weather-centric nowcasting, okay, the deep generative model that is developed by DeepMind. So they're actually leveraging on the characteristic of AI, which in terms of which is known as machine learning, as well as high power computing. Okay. So with these 2 features and functions, they are able to have the capability to tune out a very large number of data, okay, in a very short period of time, therefore allow them to accurately predict, okay, what is going to happen in the upcoming 1 to 2 hours. Okay, so developing a model is the heart of predictive analytics. So after that, developing a model, of course, you have to deploy it. Yeah? You have to put it into the real world environment and the workflow. You have to integrate that and start using it and evaluate. Lastly, evaluate the result with respect to your expectation and your KPI. Yeah. So these are the steps in which predictive analytics can be adopted in any organization who would like to have a glimpse into the future using data that they have in their business climate. Okay, so another point that I want to highlight is you may asking, what are the types of skill sets or workforce that require for you to actually complete this and produce this predictive analytics? Well, in terms of developing the model, you need a data scientist. To deploy the model, you will need a data engineer. And eventually, to access the outcome, the effectiveness of this model, to validate the result, then you will need data analysts. So therefore, these are the 3 main pillars for you to drive all your digital initiative, the digitalization and the transformation in your organization. Data scientist, data engineer, as well as data analyst. Okay, so with this, right, another thing I'd like to share is you might wonder, how would I be able to manage, okay, the success rate of our predictive analytics? Well, I'm going to share a few points over here. So whenever you are talking about predictive analytics, so please bear in mind that we are actually looking for an innovative solution. Yeah. So during that time, along the way of the journey of generating a model, so you're bound to encounter many setbacks. It will take very time consuming and it's very complex. But these are the 4 points in which you can adopt, okay, to make sure that you can ensure there's a success in terms of your predictive analytics. The first point is, okay, the good prediction are all depending on quality data. That's for sure, right? So which is, and stage number 2, explore the data, making sure you choose the right data, okay, for your model creation. Yeah, so there's one saying, garbage in, garbage out. So if your data is really unstructured, there's a lot of errors, okay, a lot of bias, then do not expect that you will have a very good model that produce good result. Right? So good predictions are highly dependent on quality of the data. Second one is developing the right model is actually very, very important. So it's not, do not put too much expectation in terms of one model to solve all problems. Okay, so that you will find yourself to be in a very difficult position because there will be too many variables. If there are too many variables, then your model will take longer time to learn. Then you will take more time consuming, right? So then you're bound to have more restriction, more dependency. So with that, the entire predictive analytics generation will take a lot much longer time. So that you may face some form of setback from the management saying, why does it take so long for you to develop a model and come up with the solution? Or if there are too many variables, then the outcome might not be effective. It may be only 40%. So because the variables are too many. So what you might want to do is you might want to actually be very specifically know what kind of model that you use to solve certain type of problem, right? So they're focused on that kind of scenario for you to develop the right model. So this is one way for you to make sure you can control the success of your predictive analytics. And third one, ambiguity is inevitable. So meaning that always bound to be some form of things, okay, algorithms or some kind of a mechanism which you might not be able to explain 100%. Yeah, because this is machine learning. It's all based on code, right? So of course, we as data scientists who develop the model, we have to have some form of control and understanding. We have to be able to explain why certain outcome has been produced by using this model, by using certain inputs and this algorithm. Okay, but being a user of predictive analytics, relying on modeling, so we have to sometimes give and take and see, okay, so what kind of ambiguity things that can be explained, okay, make sure that they are critical, can be explained, things that can't be explained, so make sure that it's manageable. So because all in all, at the end of the day, when we do modeling development, we are actually trying to find an innovative solution. Okay, then lastly, okay, to make your predictive analytics a success is you have to really start applying them. Okay, apply the model that you develop into a real world, but of course make sure that it has to be in a controlled environment. Okay, with a proper evaluation methodology in place. So this is where, okay, we can constantly fine tune the model, okay, and improve through multiple iterations. So as you go along with that, okay, I believe you shall be able to get a very reliable and consistent model. So these are few things that I'd like to share, make sure that you can govern the expectation of your predictive analytics journey. Okay, so then we'll talk about weather. We go back about weather nowcasting. Yeah. So do you think that weather data insights would be helpful? Well, okay, the application is endless, right? In terms of healthcare, right? If you have weather data about different types of weather condition in terms of temperature, air quality, or pollen count, that may affect all different types of allergies or flu season. Well, that would be definitely helpful for you to manage in terms of the healthcare infrastructure as well as resources. Then in terms of emergency response and humanitarian aid, okay, weather forecast is very, very powerful tools, right? Because it allows us to actually predict what is going to happen so that we can get prepared well before a disaster happens. Right. Thirdly, agriculture. Yes, agriculture, the weather have direct impact in terms of their yield and the performance of their crops. So agriculture will can heavily rely on weather data insights to better manage their yield and their agriculture outcome. So then the fourth one, environmental and forestry. Yeah, so this is very, very helpful in terms of the weather data science allows them to prevent some kind of a forest fire, especially in terms of when there's a drought season. Okay, they are able to do some form of prediction to make sure okay the temperature is so high, and what kind of situation that they have to start having some artificial rain to make sure they can control all these extreme weather conditions. Now sports, yes, okay, especially both outdoor sports where okay we're gonna live session. So weather data is very, very crucial role in terms of making sure the entire event is being carried out successfully. Yeah, so there won't be any potential thunderstorm or rainfall that actually disrupt the entire event. Then lastly, yeah, public transportation, like especially air traffic control, right? So they rely heavily on the weather to make sure or the entire airport and the entire air traffic can be managed effectively. Yeah. So these are one where you can see where weather data centric application can be used, and it's endless, right? So then you'll be wondering, is it real? Is this data do you really see any of this kind of situation in the real world? Yes, there is. So some of the organization or the enterprise company, they have already started leveraging on the data, weather data insights to relay this kind of insight to the customer to help them plan ahead. So let's look at one of these example over here, okay, where Tomorrow AI is a company that leverage on this weather data insights to provide services to their customer. So let's have a look at how this Ford company is able to leverage on weather intelligence to gain an advantage in terms of their racing. Yeah. Okay, so let me just bring up that video over here. Let's have a look.
So weather has a huge impact on race operations, just from a technical perspective with the cars, but also with our operations of how we get here and the setup involved with all the equipment and all the people coming in and out of the event. My name is Matt Todd, and my title is NASCAR Programs and Analytics Supervisor at Ford Performance. Cars race with in NASCAR, wind is very important. That can have a significant impact on drag, the vehicle's performance around the track. Surface temperature is another huge factor in vehicle performance. If the track is hot, the track may react different, or the cars may react different to the track. So keeping track of all that and being able to predict it, but also know what it's doing live is very important. As far as operations, we get here several days before the event. We have to set up. That goes for us. It goes for NASCAR. It goes for our race team partners. Everybody has a lot of things they have to unpack, set up to allow the event to happen. And when the event's over, everybody's got to pack all that up and move it down the road. So understanding weather around the entire event before and after is very important for those operations. Weather's always been important for us, but with our relationship with Tomorrow.io, our ability to integrate data streams with APIs and have access to information more quickly, huge benefit and improvement over our previous services. The alerts are incredibly important. We were just in a situation with lightning the other day. When we got to the track at Atlanta on Friday, we had some tasks we had to do that morning. We looked at the Hypercast tool and saw that rain was imminent. It was only a few hours away. So we immediately jumped into action to get our work done before that got here. And then any safety concerns with lightning, there was a lot of lightning in the area. The tool was very accurate with where the lightning was occurring and the frequency. That's huge for us to be able to know once we are shut down in a safe spot, how much longer is it going to be until we're able to resume operations. This makes my job a lot easier. It creates a lot of efficiencies for us with our data streams and Tomorrow IO's data streams being available in one place. Folks, it's
All right. So as you can see here, application of weather data insights it can be really used. So before I end my webinar for today, so I guess going to leave you with one question. Yeah. So as you can see, with data, all right, we are able to become semi-god, right? Because combining with analytics, okay, in this case, predictive analytics, it allows us to leverage, understand the weather, so that we can actually better manage our businesses. So therefore, what is holding you back, okay, from using data and starting your digitalization initiative in your company? So have a thought about that. Thank you very much, everyone. So now we will open for a Q&A.
Thank you so much, T.S. Wallace, for your sharing today. We explored a lot about today's topic. Now we have arrived to the Q&A session. I do have questions from the floor. You may speak directly with T.S. Wallace to discuss about our topic today. You may also drop your question in the chat box.
Can you advise small steps company to take to become data driven? Can you advise? Yeah, sure. So for us to what is the first steps towards actually embarking on your digitalization and digital transformation journey is firstly, you would have to know where you are, right? So as a company, where you are in terms of your data-driven maturity. Okay, so we have in CADS, we have a form of assessment which we can take within the organization itself to see where you are in terms of your maturity of data-driven initiative. So having completed that, then we can really delve into what are the specific areas which you can focus in order to embark in terms of your digitalization initiative and digital transformation program. Yeah. So first thing first, you need to know where you are in terms of digital maturity. Yes, Zahid, thank you for your question over here about data security and community when doing analytics and publish results. All right, that's a very good question, Zahid. So meaning, when you talk about data security and confidentiality, when you talk about sharing information, right? Because when you say publish the result, so publish the result is about sharing of the result within an organization. So therefore, whatever kind of analytics that you have actually created, so first thing first, to ensure security, so you will have to make sure you choose an application that is actually licenses, yeah, not it's not in the form of a public license, but licenses to your within your organization, so that whatever data that you uploaded or whatever eventual insights that you have created is stay within the organization community, your organization database. So that is the first step towards making sure confidentiality and data security is met as an organization as you explore more of your data usage and generate more insight. Okay? So choosing a right platform is critical to make sure data are all stored within your organization. Hi, Annie. Yes, thanks for your information. Thanks for your question over here. Large data, okay. How about small scale? Is it possible? Yeah, for example, the data are not more than. Yes. Of course, the in terms of predictive analysis, yeah, so the outcome is very much dependent on your data input. Yeah? So if you say that if your data set is very small, so meaning in fact you can have a predicted outcome, but you do not need to create a model to it. Yeah, you can just use a very conventional approach, for example, like a decreasing statistics approach, for us to do some form of extrapolation or prediction using the existing data, which is very small set, as you can say, right, 1,000 row. So with that, yes, you can still predict some form of information, but I believe that information should only be used very specific to a situation or context that you have, right? Because with such small rows of data, I presume you only have maybe just very limited inputs, very limited variables. So therefore, your outcome in terms of the effectiveness would be very much narrowed down to a specific problem or a specific scenario that you have. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. All right, so we have more questions over here. So what kind of people and skills are needed to do predictive analytics? Is there a list? Yes, in fact, as I mentioned in my webinar just now, right? So you need to have a group of workforce that is well versed in different skill sets and domains. So specifically, we are talking about data scientists, data engineer, as well as data analyst. So data scientist is the one that is purely responsible of creating the predictive model. Yeah. So then once they have created that model, data scientists will be able to rely on data engineer to integrate that model, which is a form of algorithm, into your existing workflow and organization. So once that is done, okay, so the data analyst, the third type of data science skill set is data analyst will be the one evaluating the outcome to do a pre and post comparison by looking at all those relevant measurement metrics which you have defined in respect to the problem statement which you want to solve using that particular model. So these are the three main pillars for you to actually have an successful predictive analytics outcome. Data scientist generate the model, data engineer integrate into your workflow, and then data analyst is the one who do all the visualization and assessment. Yes, thanks for the question, Dr. Nohidai. What are the key skills regard to be a data-driven organization? So, yes, as you mentioned, since it's a data-driven organization, so skills is not specifically the only pillar. When we talk about to become a data-driven organization of different maturity level, we always look at multiple 6 types of pillars. So in our data-driven organization assessment, so the pillars that we covered, they are like a technology, like application, and skill sets, yeah, and then your strategy of your data digitalization, okay? And then also the talent that you have, then eventually will be what kind of next level of data-driven organization level they like to achieve. So it's not just purely based on skills, but it's also based on your digitalization strategy, okay, your technology that you have, all right? Because as we see here in the webinar, we see that we had to rely on certain types of application, okay, to run this kind of model. Then of course also the way where how you want to upskill your personnel. So there are multiple factors to that. Okay, all right. Okay, thanks. Thanks. So there's one question here. Can you share the challenge that you might face when we work on predictive analytics and projects? Personal experience and story to share. So mainly, the main challenges in terms of predictive analytics is during the model development stage, as well as fine-tuning the model, because that would take a very, very long period of time, which is depending on how many inputs that actually you're looking at. The more inputs that you incorporate into a model, right, the longer the model would take in order to tune out the types of predictive outcomes that match to your requirement. So there are multiple AI analytics that you can use. There are supervised machine learning, there are some unsupervised machine learning, there are deep learning. So as an example that we see over there, the weather nowcasting that is produced by DeepMind. So they're actually using some kind of deep learning. So of course, those have to combine with a very powerful infrastructure, which is high performance computing, in order to run all these simulation, okay, 24/7, in order to produce the required outcome. So yes, so the challenges will be in terms of okay, the infrastructure that you have, and of course patience, okay, on getting the outcome that you want. Okay, we have another question over here. Okay, which one do you think is better, send our current staff for data science learning or hire a data scientist as a staff? So it has to be of a mixture, in fact, because in long term, if you want to progress our organization to become a higher level of maturity in terms of data-driven organization, all staff, all organization, all department, they will have to speak, they have to eat, and then they have to breathe data. So meaning all of them will have to have some form of data literacy as a fundamental for them to really appreciate that data tells a lot of insights, and data can help us to innovate, help us to become more efficient. So all in all, in the long term, it is strongly advised that organization of all staff have to be of certain level of data literacy in their job scope, as well as in their daily work. So, but if you want to kickstart your initiative of digital transformation in the company, right, you can't have that kind of data champion. You do not have this kind of data champion, right? So you can always have an external hire, okay, which is a data scientist, okay, to lead this kind of digital transformation within an organization. However, be very, very mindful that whichever data scientist that you hire has to be of matching domain knowledge as per the organization. So that is where that specific data scientist can bring the most valuable, because as a data champion, right, you really have to understand not only usage of data analytics, okay, but also able to translate, okay, all those insights into application, right? So that part is heavily depending on the domain knowledge of that specific data scientist. So if you really want to hire, make sure you hire data scientists with domain knowledge that matches your organization. Yeah, I hope I answered your question there, Dr. Mohidaya. Why is the salary range for expert that you mentioned just now? I have no idea actually. I'm not really going to that. Once I find it, maybe I can share it with you. That's a good question there. Yeah, I'm not really paying attention to that. Any more questions or sharing? Any free training available? So in CADS, we have some form of free training. In CADS, we have some form of how is it? Some kind of PDA 101. So that is the big data analytics. So over there, so if you register with us into our platform CADS AI, so then we hope that we can see what form of free snippets that we can provide, okay, yeah, in terms of firstly improving the data literacy. Yeah, so it's very much subjected to the the enterprise as well as the scenario that you're in. Okay. Any question? Any other question or sharing? Oh, okay. As a leader or manager, do I need to learn? Oh, of course. Yes. It's, in fact, it's very, very important because for us to have a successful digital transformation, so we would really have to set some kind of role model. So where does this role model come from? Actually, it comes from the higher management, right? They have to use a top-down approach to see that, okay, now we now acknowledge a lot of insights can be obtained, and we as a higher level management, we like to rely on data to drive decision. So therefore, with this, we can cascade the requirement down to all the workforce. First, to start collecting data in the very first place, right? So then making sense of the data, and then learn all the necessary skills to produce those insights that is required for the higher management to make a decision. So therefore, yes, absolutely. In fact, you have to start from the top to use a top-down approach to drive digital transformation in organization. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. So I hope you find the session insightful and useful for you to start exploring on data analytics.
Thank you so much, T.S. Wallace, for your sharing your time to share your knowledge with us today. Before we end, can we have you to give us some closing remarks to our participants?
Yeah, for me, my closing remarks is in a digital ecosystem, right, where things are changing so fast, especially with the data tsunami is ever growing. So the delay in digital adoption actually means death. All right, DEATH. So right, so the more you delay digital adoption, then the more challenges or more competition you will face in terms of your day-to-day business climate. So start now, right? Start now, even though it's small, but know where is important. Identify. If you need any guidance, come to us. Visit our website, right? So we shall be able to give you a proper structured approach of how to kickstart your digital transformation program. Start now. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, T.S. Wallace. Now we are going to wrap up our session. Can we have everyone to open your camera for our photo shoot session?
Okay. Maybe T.S. Wallace can unshare.
Oh yeah. Right. Okay.
Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, another one. Okay. Okay, another one. 1, 2, 3, smile. Done. Thank you, T.S. Wallace.
Welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Take care. Stay safe.